Inner Wealth Podcast. La 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 la. Inner Wealth Podcast. La 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 la. Inner Wealth Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Inner Wealth Podcast with Dave and Liz.
Yes. Let's go. Inner Wealth.
What up, though?
What up, doe?
Man, I've been since probably around 1999. I saw this movie. This movie had changed my life from the
Yes.
moment that I saw this movie.
Right.
And that movie is The Matrix.
The Matrix. Do.
And once I saw that movie, man, I really, going down the rabbit holes of being in the Christian world, self-help world, wellness world, I saw one thing. The Matrix, the movie, connected all of them.
Mm.
And what we talk about most of is trauma.
Right.
So today we're going to talk about awakening from the trauma matrix.
Yes.
And we got a very special guest here to be able to help us break down and dissect the matrix.
Yes, we
That's
do.
Mr. Billy Carson, Forbidden Knowledge.
Forbidden knowledge. AKA Morpheus.
Is it really forbidden anymore if we talking about it? I guess it was forbidden, but now we broke that barrier, right?
Well, the key behind forbidden knowledge is when you look up what forbidden means, it means that it's not unaccessible knowledge, but that it's actually just hard to find knowledge. And it's so fractalized and so displaced that sometimes it's hard to bring all the pieces together and make a picture.
Right.
So what I've been able to do is go here, go there, go all these different locations and capture pieces of information from different sources and paint a better picture for people.
Mm.
That's
Dope.
deep.
Yeah, it's deep and dope.
So we're gonna have a lot of deep moments of that on this podcast. So if you one thing about what we do is it's not about what we say.
Right.
It's about what you feel
Yes.
coming from us.
Exactly.
And we can talk all over each other.
Yes,
And
we can and we
right?
do.
And
but
we do.
That's how we flow.
That's
just
how we flow.
talk.
And if you don't resonate with that,
Hey,
you
it's
don't
okay.
vibe. If you don't vibe with that, then
That's okay.
it just ain't for you. But today we're gonna dive deep into the rabbit hole. Go
Yeah.
down deep into the rabbit hole. So let's talk about just the beginning of the Matrix. And again, spoiler alert: if you've never seen this movie,
No.
you probably want to turn this off
I
and
know.
then go watch the Matrix first and then come back.
Right.
But the truth is, many people who've seen the movie have never seen the movie.
That's right.
Exactly.
So we're going to talk about seeing the movie,
Hidden meanings.
right? And so one of the things that popped up in the first few scenes was Neo, basically the white rabbit. You remember that scene when the
Yeah.
woman came with the white rabbit on the tattoo and it said "Follow the white rabbit" on this computer screen?
Yeah.
And immediately what I thought about when I saw that was, what you seek is seeking you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Deep.
Yeah.
So these people who are listening to the Inner Wealth podcast and things like yourself, they're seekers. And
Yeah.
that's why Inception, we call them people seekers,
Seekers,
because you
yep.
literally have to seek this information out. We
Yeah.
can't tell you.
Mm-mm.
Has to be seen,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what Morpheus told Neo too within the first, first part of the movie, is that when he was talking about the Matrix and waking up from, he said, unfortunately, I can't tell you what the Matrix is. I have to show you.
That's right.
You have to see it for yourself.
Have to see
Yeah.
it for yourself. Exactly. You don't understand the meaning of something until you really feel that meaning. Like feel it inside you, or else right over your head.
Well, that's part of our journey.
Yeah.
Me and yours. Like, I told you stuff years ago.
Yes, you did.
And even in the therapy world,
Mm.
a therapist's job is not to tell you. Their job is not to do all the talking.
Oh, they're just mirroring you. They're mirroring
They're
you.
supposed to listen. And if you have a therapist who's doing more talking than listening, then
Yeah.
you got to fire your
Yeah.
therapist.
That's right.
Right.
If you know, and we had this conversation with Dr. Strong, who's a psychiatrist, Black psychiatrist, and we had it during this weekend here of cooperation versus competition.
Mm.
And he said, I have to tell my clients I'm not your friend, because people think that their therapist is their friend.
Right.
That's not their job. Their
No.
job is to allow your unconsciousness
To
for
become
you to
conscious.
see your unconsciousness.
Yes.
Exactly.
So why is it that way? Why is it that we can't tell someone? Why is it that we have to see it for ourselves?
It comes down to an old saying, which I've slightly modified. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink because you're thirsty. And so someone has to become thirsty to become awake, and someone has to become thirsty to take a journey to inner space and expose the shadows inside of their own selves. They have to be willing to see the dark side of themselves, or see where they're falling into the wrong places or making the wrong decisions. You look at an alcoholic or a person addicted to drugs, right? They can go to all the classes that they want to try to get out of that, but if they don't first say, "Look, I admit I have a problem. There's just something
Right.
wrong with me that I'm addicted to this particular substance." If they don't do that, they'll never, ever, ever be able to get clean.
Right.
And so it's the same thing. You can just relate that to life. If you can't admit that the information that I've been programmed to know and process my entire life is actually most likely a lot skewed, and I really need to take a deeper dive and look at myself and my knowledge and what I do know, research and dig much deeper into who I
Yeah.
am, what's going on inside of me, so I could begin to access and make the proper changes.
Right.
That man, look at this. That first part of the movie, like what you said,
Mm-hmm.
everything you just said in AA meetings, right?
Yeah.
They have to acknowledge that they have an issue,
Mhm.
right? That's the awareness. But you talked about being able to see our light and our dark.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who think that they're doing the work,
Mhm.
if you're not uncomfortable, if your mind has not been blown,
Mhm.
if you don't feel sadness, grief,
Yeah.
because when you first break through the matrix
Mhm.
and seeing all that, what you
Mhm.
thought was true,
Yeah.
and that be shattered,
There's a lot of grief in that.
Yeah.
you're not awakening.
Right.
You're not.
All this, I'm woke.
Mhm.
What are you woke to?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not talking about just seeing the misery in the world.
Mhm.
You have to see the misery and how you play a part to that misery.
Correct.
Exactly. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because we all play a part to that, right?
Oh yeah. Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
You can't be a proponent of talking about mental health,
Mhm.
but sell trauma.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
I try to tell people that all the time, especially on social media in their conscious community. There's a lot of accounts that are promoting this higher level of conscious thought, but they're consistently putting the fear-based
Mm,
information out.
yeah.
Now there has to be a balance, as with anything on this planet.
Mm.
You have to have balance, and so if you don't have the balance, you can continue to push the fear porn on them, and what's
Fear
happening
porn.
is,
Yeah.
the fear porn, and
Fear
these people
porn.
become addicted to
That's
fear
deep.
porn.
Yeah.
Very
I call it
addicted.
stimulus porn,
Yeah.
but that's a sub
Yeah.
a category of it.
Yes.
Because we just in one big stimulation response loop.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a stimulation that you're
Yeah.
interested in.
Right.
The fear, the
Mhm.
news. My
Right.
mom never let me watch the news growing up
Mm.
because what did they see? I would see us being shot. I would see us
Right.
misery. I would see us ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that we any of those things.
Right.
It's just a cool way to program.
Mhm.
And everything we're gonna talk about on
But
this
you-
is programming.
That's
Right,
right.
exactly. But you become physically addicted to that type of stuff too. Like your
Mhm.
body releases chemicals that,
Mhm.
and then you become addicted to those chemicals. So now you're
Yeah.
searching it out. And now that becomes your lens
Mhm.
of
Mm.
life, of the
Right.
world, fear.
So what happens is people start following some accounts, and they start thinking, I'm getting more woke because this account is exposing all this negativity, but there's no balance on that particular account. So what
Mm.
happens is you just fall deeper into a low frequency vibration of fear, and you're still in flight and fright mode. You're still, building up trauma.
Mm.
And then, if anything, you're adding so much more psychological trauma to yourself that you're
Yeah.
becoming even more and more sick mentally.
Yeah. Yeah. And I went down that rabbit hole.
I think I've been there too.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah.
I call it catastrophism.
Mm.
Right. And that's go to that part in the movie. The first part, the other part when Neo woke up was waking up when he first came out the Matrix. First of all, Neo, man, he trusted Morpheus like
Yeah.
really heavily. He's like, yeah, put this thing on your arm, man.
I
Like,
know.
yeah, like
He
he
getting hooked up
wasn't
to machines. I'll be like,
he was
what are you doing?
frozen.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't tripping
Super
out of nothing.
frozen.
He just
Right.
like, oh,
I
what's
know.
that? Started
Right.
looking at himself in the mirror. I'm like, I would have
know.
been like, I would have tasted that pill. Like, man, what's
I
this,
know.
man? What is this? What's in here, bro?
I know. Asking way more questions.
Because
He
you
was
know
just like,
what was one man who the coat where they drank the Kool-Aid and they all died. I think it was Jim
Oh,
Jones,
man.
Jim
right?
Jones, the
Yeah.
Kool-Aid that everybody drank it and died. Yes, that's
So
right.
so even though Morpheus played this role,
Mhm.
he was just trying to show himself.
Yeah.
If you're following a leader
Yeah.
and they don't point you back to
You,
yourself,
right.
Mm-hmm.
if they don't
They're not.
point you back to your own power,
Yep.
if they disconnect you and it's always something outside of you, greater than you,
right.
I don't care.
It's
I
wrong.
don't care what religion.
Yeah.
They all, and you can probably tell me more than anybody, right? You
Mhm.
go through all the religions.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same message to go inward?
It's always go inward, and people who are in these religions even try to skew it and take it back towards, no, it's on the outside.
Mm.
But when you read the text that they're supposed to be studying, it all says, and I mean every single one, it says the same thing. The power is inside of you. The truth is inside of you. Heaven is inside of you. I mean, everything is always inside. The light is inside of you. And no matter how far back you go, all the way back even to the Emerald Tablets, 36,000, 40,000 years ago, it is the light is in you. And, you know, that's what it's all about. But for some weird reason, the programming on the outside is so strong, it has taken everyone, and even though they've gone over that information, they've now flipped it to, oh, I'm waiting for some external help or
Right.
assistance, not realizing that the power truly is already inside of them.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Disconnects you from your power, man.
Yeah.
It's,
So if you got a leader and that's what's happening, then
you're following the wrong one.
you got to do what Morpheus, what Neo did on this first series or
Mhm.
scene when he woke up. He said, "Why do my eyes hurt?"
Exactly.
Mhm.
And Morpheus told him, "Cause you never used them before."
Exactly. I try to tell people I have two eyes to see and one eye to look. And so that's the third eye, looking through the pineal gland, through the spiritual antenna, and realizing and recognizing that the eyes that you have now are looking at a complete illusion. You haven't really seen anything yet.
Right, because it's not your eyes that see, right? It's your
Exactly.
brain.
Your
Exactly.
brain,
So
right.
from a neuro physical standpoint, you can break that down neurologically. Like,
Yeah.
oh, our eyes are just they're not projectors, right?
Right. The eyes are just data collection tools, and so they're friends of the brain. So your brain is encased in complete darkness. It doesn't know anything going on outside. And so what the brain says is to its friends, look, hearing, smell, sight, touch, vision, go out there and collect me some information. So the friends themselves, the eyes go out, the eyes collect photons and data is inside the photons, but the eyes can't decipher that information. They said, let me send this back to my homeboy. Let me send it back to the brain. The brain takes that information and sorts it all out and then projects a hologram as to what's going on out there. And then you navigate through the matrix based off of that hologram.
Yo, if y'all heads are
I
is
know.
being blown out there, like take a pause.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be something you need to listen to.
Right.
Yeah.
Run that back.
You can run this thing. I've watched The Matrix for the last 20 years.
Mhm.
And every time I see it,
see something new.
I see something else.
Yeah.
Why? Not because the movie is changing.
Right.
Because I'm changing.
You're
Because
changing.
you're changing.
You're
right.
elevating.
Yeah.
What people understand, being born again has nothing to do with dumping yourself into a bucket of water or an ocean. Being born again is all about raising your level of consciousness. And so every time that happens, you're born again, and you'll be born again multiple times in one lifetime. You'll be able to look back on your previous level of consciousness from a higher state. And that means you're growing and developing and you're ascending. It's an ascension process.
Yeah. And a lot of people got lost in the symbolism of it. That was just symbolic. Same thing
Yes.
with the float tank. You get into a float tank naked
Yeah.
and you walk out like when it's over with, it's like, oh, I see the light. A light comes on at the end, and guess what? You're born again. It's just
Exactly.
symbolism. But like you said, there's levels and layers to it. And so as we go further into the movie The Matrix, so first thing when you do wake up to everything we talk about, you're going through cognitive dissonance right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Listening to this information because you have a programmed about what what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And this is now going against it. When Morpheus took Neo back into the Matrix for the first time, and really they just ran a program.
Yeah.
And he said, "This isn't real." He said, "Well, what is real?" In quantum theory, we've never even touched anything.
Exactly. You never touch anything. But the illusion of touching is really just that, a complete illusion of the matrix programming code, because what happens is when you try to touch something, the electrons orbiting the atoms in your hand will have an electromagnetic field around them. They repel the magnetic field, electromagnetic field of whatever you're trying to touch. So it's two repulsion forces is all that's happening. You never actually touch anything.
Right.
And atoms are 99.999% empty space.
Right? Yep.
So there's really nothing here. All we have are light waves, electromagnetic light waves that we can't see with the normal eye when they're in their, phasic state. We call it, wave particle duality in quantum physics. And so when they're in the wave state, there are possibilities, is all it is.
Right.
And then
Mm.
consciousness collapses those waves of possibilities
Mhm.
into things that look like solid matter, but in true reality, there's really nothing here.
Yeah, and I started learning that early on in probably 2004 with the movie What the Bleep Do We Know?
Mm.
Mhm.
And it bridged the gap between science and spirituality, and
Yeah.
I just remember like what, like they were talking about when you walk out of a room, like that room
They're
collapsing
disappeared,
doesn't
right?
even
Collapses.
exist,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
you know. And so that brought me on again. That
Mm.
was one of my first jumps in awakening. And again, when Morpheus had that experience with Neo, and Neo came out, and he threw up when he first came out of that first
Yeah.
simulation of
Mhm.
the Matrix. And the next morning, you saw Morpheus sitting next to Neo, and he said, "I gotta apologize to you."
Yeah.
He said, "Because we typically don't bring somebody past a certain age out of the Matrix.
Mhm.
Mm.
Why? Because their mind
Couldn't
can't
handle
handle it.
Exactly.
There's
Mhm.
people in your life that this type of message, don't try to send them to, you
No.
need to listen to this. If
Yeah.
they haven't gravitated to it,
Yeah.
Nah, let
they
'em
don't
go.
need to listen
Right.
to anything.
Exactly.
It's for you."
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
can jump to a scene where he talked about when he was meeting up with the Oracle,
Mhm.
and he came out and he said Neo was about to tell Morpheus what happened. He said, "Man, whatever happened and whatever was
Mhm.
said in there was
Mhm.
for you.
Exactly.
These podcasts, if you're here seeking this out, this is for you.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Your mom, your dad,
Yeah.
your sister, whoever.
Mhm.
You want to run and try to get them on the same wavelength,
Yeah.
and it don't work like that.
No.
You
Right.
got to do your own work." So he apologized to him.
Yeah.
And we see the older generation,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
the
yeah.
baby boomers,
Yeah.
they have a hard time. They have a hard time integrating
Yeah. It's really
the
tough for
new
them.
information.
Mhm.
Like I tell people all the time, if you take a tree when it's a young sapling, you can easily bend the limbs. But when that tree gets deep rooted and grows, if you try to bend the limb, it'll break.
Mm.
Mhm.
And so you're looking at these baby boomers, and the coding and program is so embedded in them for so many years that it's they've become rooted trees. They've grown and they've got stiff bark, and you can't
Yeah.
really bend those limbs. They'll just snap,
Mm.
and a lot of them aren't ready for that information. So you have to just I tell people who always ask me, how do I get my family members to wake up, and how do I said, you just be the light. You just do what you do.
Mhm.
Don't put
Right.
pressure on them. Every now and then you may drop a gentle seed, and that's about it. And just let them look at your life and how you're moving. Eventually, they may start to ask some questions.
Right.
Mhm.
And then you can answer the question and walk away. Don't go too deep again. Just a little bit at baby steps, a little bit at a time. Some of them will come along, some of them may not. Just be happy
Yeah.
that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're finding yourself.
Mhm.
And then others will also see how you're moving and how you're living through this matrix. And then they will then begin to ask you questions. And some people will jump right on in with you, full
Yeah.
blown. Some people will take time.
Yeah.
It's a gradual process, but
Eh,
like you say,
right.
you can't overdo it.
Everybody's in their own game.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You know?
Lead
That's
by
right.
example. Just lead by example.
Yeah.
If it's not for you, it's not for you. If it's,
Right.
like
And you know them by their fruit.
Yes.
yes,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
right.
It's like, did we miss that message? Like, you know people by their fruit,
Mhm.
meaning their actions
Yep.
show you who they are.
Exactly.
So that whole
exactly.
I'm woke because you, and so here it
'Cause you
is.
say-
Let's go back. I was about to go full into
Yeah.
that, which is, okay, you got the information. You got all his knowledge.
Yeah.
Neo, when he went, he got into the chair, he got the
Mhm.
thing plugged into him, and he was sitting there for hours just downloading information, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And he said, and he told Morpheus, I know Kung Fu. Morpheus said, what? Show me.
Show
Right.
me. Right.
Oh,
Right.
you know.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Show me.
Right.
Exactly.
It's the action that proves it.
So
right.
he went in that simulation again to show him he knew Kung Fu. And
Mhm.
what did Morpheus do? He whipped his ass.
Yep.
Yep. Beat him
Yep.
down.
He beat him down. He's training him the whole way. Yeah, you learn some information,
Mhm.
Until
but
you
you
apply
can't
that
apply
information-
it.
Until
Can't.
you apply that
Yeah.
information, it's not real. It's not in this
Exactly.
realm. It doesn't exist. It just exists in your mind
Yes.
until you apply it.
Absolutely. That
That's
happens to
the
me
fruit.
all the time. People come to challenge my information and knowledge, but I'm basing all my knowledge on facts. And I never base my knowledge off of what's on top of my skull, what I just thought about that moment.
Mhm.
I base it, and I always give people the references. And so some people come to challenge, and I go, well, show me the passport stamps. I've got the passport stamps to all these destinations that I've been to, all these ancient sites and civilizations and indigenous peoples that I've met with all around the world. show me the passport stamps, and then we can have a debate. We can talk about this. But if you
Right.
don't have if you haven't applied yourself, if you haven't got on the plane, gone to some of these locations, spent the time with these people, done the hardcore research, been on archaeological digs, it's kind of hard for you to just go for a couple of Google
Right.
searches and think you
Mhm.
got all the answers.
And
Right.
and it's interesting that people are very confident in their ignorance.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes,
Mhm.
I agree.
Those are typically the worst type
Yeah,
of, because they're the most programmed people.
yeah,
Right.
They really believe what they're saying,
yeah.
and we can go there. But back to that simulation when he fought, Morpheus fought Neo,
hmm
and he was like, he was trying to help him to free him,
Yes.
right? While he was talking to him, because again, you know some moves,
hmm
kung fu, but you still bound
Yeah.
Mm.
by the laws of this simulation
hmm
because you still have your programming.
Right.
Exactly.
So he said, load up the jump scene.
Yeah.
Let's
Mm.
go. The jump scene is when he's gonna jump across. He's gonna go
Oh,
take
yeah.
you to the Renaissance Center.
Mhm.
That's a building here in Detroit. We want to jump from one building to the next. Let's
Mhm.
see.
Yeah.
Morpheus goes and does it.
hmm
He said, you gotta free your mind, right?
Mhm.
Right.
So he goes, and it's an old song too called "Free Your Mind" by
Yes.
In Vogue.
Mhm.
In
Remember
Vogue.
that?
In
And the rest
Vogue.
will follow, right?
Yes.
Like these messages are just everywhere,
They're
Yes,
everywhere.
they
right?
are.
So he loads it up, and Morpheus jumps, no problem,
Mhm.
right? He didn't dealt with his trauma.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
He didn't dealt with his stuff.
Right.
Mhm.
He's free.
Right.
He's free.
Yeah.
Here go Neo.
Mhm.
He gotta jump, hit the ground,
Yeah.
Yep.
right? Then they bring him out, and he says, because Morpheus will tell him this it's not real, right?
Yeah.
But he comes out of the Matrix, and Neo touches his lip, and he
Mhm.
sees blood.
Mhm.
He said, "I thought you said this wasn't real."
Yeah.
He said, "It's the mind that
The
makes it
mind,
real."
right.
Exactly.
So
Right.
let's go into the whole Bruce Lipton cell
Mhm.
biologist
Right.
biology of belief.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Why does the mind make it real?
The mind makes it real because the mind, first of all, is very easily fooled. This is why you could put those goggles
VR,
on, the
yeah.
VR goggles, and
Mhm.
you can basically the mind will think it's on a roller coaster, and
Right.
you'll actually your heart will race, your
Mhm.
blood pressure will
Mhm.
go up, you start sweating and everything else, because the mind is literally designed to take input, exterior input, and process it. That's all it does. So, if you're in this case with Neo, what's happening is his mind is looking at the depth and perceiving real, true depth, and not understanding that there is no depth, there is no
Mhm.
distance. Locality doesn't exist.
Non-locality,
Right.
right?
Non-locality. There's
Right.
non-locality. There's distance and illusion. Separation is an illusion.
Yeah.
Illusion.
But he's locking on to those programmed systems that have been
Mhm.
locked into his body, locked into his brain, saying, "Oh, we perceive death, we perceive this, we perceive that." And so when he jumps, his mind is saying, "There's depth here. You can't fly. You're gonna gravity exists. You're gonna fall, and you're gonna splatter on the ground."
hmm
And so what we do in our regular everyday life is we move through this matrix thinking that we're bound by the laws of physics,
Mhm.
not understanding that we're multidimensional beings.
Mhm.
We truly do have the power to transcend this dimension through thought, through consciousness, and through our actions. And something as simple as like pulling up here today to the studio, right? While we pulled up, there was no spots, and we were like, "Oh man, we didn't pre-think our spot
We
before we
didn't
got
set
here."
an intention.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh man.
You see?
We should have set that intention. That's why you have
Right.
to live your life with intention.
Tension,
Neo
right.
Yeah.
failed
Mhm.
because his intention was on what? On the past
On
programming, which is
exactly.
what? I can't do it.
Can't do it. I
Mhm.
can't fly. How am I gonna get over there? I'm gonna fall. And as soon as he jumped, he fell.
Mhm.
And so if we would have set our intention for that parking spot when we pulled up here, the spot would have been there for us. Again, transcending space time, multidimensional
Mhm.
thinking.
Right.
So the mind is locked into the programming code. But in another method, we can actually utilize the mind to understand. And once you understand it, you can break this system of relativity and all
Mhm.
these constructs of gravity
Right.
and everything else. And you could think mind outside of body and become multidimensional. Even calling down an elevator in a busy building. I've done that before. Making sure when I get there and I press the button, the elevator's already ready for me.
Mm.
Simple things like that are ways to test the true power that you have.
And you see it all the time. And so we want to come. This is science.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like you see it all the time. One time, quantum theory is whatever you observe changes, right?
Mhm.
So I'm driving down the street one day, and I feel somebody looking at me.
Mm.
I know they're looking at me. Why do I know they're looking at me
Mm.
when I can't see them?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's their observation of me is changing me. And I
Exactly.
turn over and I look, and it was my cousin doing like this,
Mm.
just
Yeah.
staring at me.
Wow.
And I
Mhm.
knew, and everybody who's listened to this, write down.
Mm-hmm.
You can write down these moments
Yeah.
that's happened to
Yeah.
you,
Right.
those deja vu moments.
Mm-hmm.
These things exist, not because it's some airy fairy,
No.
don't go down your program mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know a lot of people are going to do that. Start going down,
Mhm.
that's the devil, that's this. No,
Right.
no,
No.
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 This is science.
Science.
And
Everything
this
is
is
entangled.
spirituality, and
Exactly.
everything is connected.
Everything
Yes.
is connected.
Yes.
What you're doing is having a hard time
Mhm.
coming to grips with who you are.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's what's happening.
Right.
And
Right.
you're bucking it
Mm-hmm.
to the point where you will want to fight people to hold your limited
Hold your
belief.
belief. Right.
Yes.
Hold
And we
your
see
belief.
that all the time. We see it.
So when we talk about the biology of belief, I talk a lot about trauma because that's one of the ways to program
Mhm.
that fear response where you're
Mhm.
stuck in a protection algorithm program.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh, that's a threat that looked like something that happened to me when I was 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The brain stores that information, and
Yep.
everything from light, sound, and what you heard
Mhm.
can become that trigger to basically activate
Yeah.
Mhm.
that program algorithm
Right.
protection algorithm program. Right now, you
Mhm.
activate it. Now
Right.
you
Now your
now
body
you're on
reacts. Your
guard,
body
right?
reacts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the biggest ways that you come out of the matrix, not just from the knowledge standpoint, but you gotta train your body.
Exactly.
It's not about just
Not separation.
psychology.
Right. Right.
Psychology is okay. That's awareness.
Awareness. Exactly. But again, let's apply.
Let's
Apply.
apply. You
Exactly.
know, show me
Yes.
now.
Exactly.
Oh, you healed from trauma?
Yeah.
Show me.
Show me how.
Yeah.
And how do you show me?
Fruit.
Well, let's see.
Yeah. Let's see what you
Right.
got.
Let's see what you're doing.
Mhm.
Yep.
Oh, you incongruent.
Mm-hmm.
You have not healed as much as you think you've done
Right.
because the
Exactly.
time has just passed.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Time doesn't heal
Time
wounds.
does not
No.
exist.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Time
Exactly.
doesn't even exist.
That's right. That's another
Just like
problem.
again in quantum theory, non-locality,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't. There's no such thing as here and over there.
Nope.
Right.
Nope. There
So
is no
Jesus
separation. Mm.
talked about. He dealt with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and
Mhm.
Sadducees really means separatists.
Separatists. Yes.
So who's pumping this illusion of separation?
Mhm.
Whoever's pumping the separation program,
Mm-hmm.
those are the people you need to really stay away from.
Exactly.
Because they're disconnecting you from your own power.
Oh, they put it on TV. Oh, so let's just make this plain and clear. Either you got it vaccinated or
Yeah.
you got a mask on.
Right.
And the
Mm.
ones without the mask means what?
Mm.
You're unvaccinated.
That's
So
right.
what are you telling us really?
Yeah.
Right.
You're telling us to not like each other based on you didn't get vaccinated
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. Mhm.
Method of control.
Even though we don't
separation.
understand that there's a
Mhm.
lot of people who got vaccinated who still want to wear a mask.
Exactly.
Mhm.
But that's not the game,
Right.
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 right?
It's all about divide and conquer.
Yes. That.
So you break them, you break them. So you get them, you pull them apart, and
Mhm.
now you got them separated, and now you have everybody battling each other
Mm.
and not being able to focus on who really is the true person setting this up. Who are the
Right.
true?
Yeah.
Who's behind the scenes
Distraction.
pulling our
Pulling the
strings?
strings.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
That's Wizard of Oz. It's the Wiz. That's what the Matrix is. And,
Right.
and ladies and gentlemen, the Matrix was written by a black woman.
Yes.
Just so
It
y'all
was.
didn't know.
That's right.
Like, and you know her.
Yeah.
I've heard her on Clubhouse, and I
Mhm.
follow her on Instagram. Now she wrote that in Terminator 2.
Terminator 2. Yeah.
Terminator, all the Terminators.
Terminator, all
yeah,
the
all
Terminators.
of
They
them.
just kind of fed off of the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Turned it into multiple series of movies.
So back to your belief. Your belief creates reality.
Yeah.
Mm.
And one thing on that belief thing, real quick, is the epigenetic memories.
Mm.
I'm glad you said that.
Yes.
You know, so
Go
a
there.
lot of people are operating in this programming code, and they're trying to figure out why they're having all these feelings of fear, PTSD, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and all these other things. And their life appears to be okay and great, and everything seems to be going great, and they want to address these issues and problems. They can't figure out why they're so locked in. Well, through the RNA from traumas that happened 15 to 20 generations ago, through the RNA of the father coming in through the sperm, those traumas are being passed in through epigenetics right down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, you could be trying to do everything right, but not realizing that you have ancestral trauma inside of your body.
Right.
Yep.
This is real science,
Right.
Mhm.
peer-reviewed real science.
Mm.
And so it's like you have to now address the actual epigenetics
Yeah.
as well.
Right.
You got to go deep
Yeah.
inside.
Got to
You got
go
to
deep
begin
into
to
the original source code.
exactly. You
Yeah.
got to go to the source code and you got to start reprogramming.
hmm
And you got to do it. And that's the only way to really clear those past traumas.
Yeah,
Right. Get to
and
the
and
root.
and
You
that's
have
what
to.
we talk about in Inception all the time.
Yeah.
Only thing we're doing is letting people empty the cup. The
Mhm.
cup.
Right. Right.
Jesus said you can't pour new wine into old wineskins.
Right.
You can't take in new consciousness
Mhm.
with old programming.
Right.
Mhm.
You
Exactly.
can't put seeds on unfertile ground.
Right.
Like he's speaking in parables because we too stupid
Mm.
to understand.
Right.
Because our eyes and our program, it's not, and I don't want to use the word stupid how
Mhm.
we understand it.
Right.
Stupid as in you're programmed
Programming.
to see what you see.
Right.
Mhm.
This ain't about religion. This is not about conversion.
Mhm.
This is not about trying to make you feel a certain way. If you listen to this message and you understand, you resonate with it,
Mhm.
you do your work.
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
You're going to resonate what you're going to resonate, whether
Yeah.
it's Buddhism,
Mhm.
whether it's Islam,
Yeah.
whether it's Christianity, you're going to resonate what you resonate with.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But don't think that you're a seeker of truth
Mhm.
if you're only reading things that confirm
What
what
you
you already
believe.
believe.
Right. Right.
What you already believe. Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I have, to keep telling people. Like, if you're basing all the information you know off of one book, off of what you heard from maybe one video off YouTube, or what somebody you go to meet in a building tells you once a week, then you haven't really gone into the information. You really don't know what you think you know. You just know what somebody's giving you. You're regurgitating the same information over and over again.
Right.
You've got to go deep, and you've got to go into the root and sources of information, track back through history where this information came from, and try to really even sometimes break down the root words.
Yeah.
Get to the nitty gritty of things to find out exactly what you're being told and taught, and all the parts that you've missed in between that you haven't been told, and try to paint your own picture.
Yeah.
Right.
And transitioning into Morpheus goes to take Neo to see what? The Oracle,
Mhm.
right? And the Oracle, he has in his mind Neo, and we all did when we watched the movie.
Yeah.
He's about to go in and see the Oracle.
Mm-hmm.
Before we even go into that scene, let's sit down with him and the little kid and the other
Yeah.
potentials that they call it that was sitting there. And he sat with this one little kid and he said, this kid was sitting there bending spoons.
Mhm. Yeah.
And Neo sat down with him and he said, you got to realize the truth. Like, don't try to bend the spoon.
Right.
He said, realize the truth. He said, what is the truth? That there is no spoon.
Right.
Mhm.
He says, then you'll understand it's not the spoon that bends, but it's you that
Mhm.
bend. That's
Yeah.
deep.
So
That's
deep.
deep.
That's so
That's
deep.
deep.
That's
Right.
deep.
And if you can't get that, then you just ain't got it yet.
Right.
Okay?
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
just ain't there.
Right.
That's
Right.
fine. So let's go to the next scene.
Wait, man.
Let's go to the next scene,
Yeah.
which is, hey, it's the Oracle who
Right.
looks like my grandmother or somebody, right? In the
Mhm.
kitchen baking cookies,
Yeah.
right? You
Right.
thought she was gonna be the pastor on the stage,
Right.
yeah, with the offering bucket. Like,
Yep.
no, this is an unassuming, powerful woman.
Yeah.
And that's in my life.
Mhm.
I've had those people.
Mm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Very
Yeah.
unassuming.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They're not rich as you think about it
Right.
No.
in terms of monetary,
Mm-hmm.
but man,
Oh
they
my
powerful,
God.
boy.
Wealth of
Powerful.
knowledge.
Ooh, I can name some right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Powerful we go to one.
Yes.
You
yes,
know,
every
and,
week.
and
Every
and she's
week.
and she's not a psychic or anything because
No,
you gotta.
no.
She's a
Mm-mm.
body worker,
Oh my
and she
God.
uses emotional release body work. She uses craniosacral and all these other
Yes,
things. And it's
yes.
really, what did she do? What did
Crazy.
the Oracle do for Neo? First thing she did, she came in and she said, "You know what? Are you the one?"
Mm-hmm.
He said, no. He was kind of like, hesitant to answer because he didn't know. He said,
Yeah.
you see that sign up there? It was in Latin.
Mm-hmm.
It said, know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Here is, again, the oracle, the pastor, the
Mhm.
preacher, the shaman,
Mhm.
the guru,
Mm.
but they're pointing him back
To
to
himself.
himself.
Yes.
Always.
Right. Right.
So she said, by the time she got done with it, she had a conversation with him. She said, yeah, you ain't the one. You waiting for something.
Right.
He said, you got the gifts and the talents, but you're not the one. And well, actually, she didn't say that. Let me back up. She didn't say that he wasn't the one. She said, you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
he said, that I'm not the one.
Right. That's how
Mhm.
it happened.
Mm-hmm.
He told himself
Yes. Right.
what he was and what he wasn't.
Exactly.
And he,
Exactly.
cause what? because he believed that he wasn't.
Right.
He didn't believe his program.
Right. He didn't want to break the code yet. He
The
Right.
wasn't
code was
ready.
still
It's still in
activated.
him, right.
And even up to this point, he had seen a lot of miraculous things and
Right. He
amazing
still
things.
couldn't believe it.
Still couldn't
Mhm.
believe it.
Mhm.
Still wrestling with the whole idea of
Mhm.
what he just experienced.
Right.
Right.
Right. And so that's people.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can show people you can come out of the matrix, you can read all of the information,
Mhm.
Right.
but that still doesn't mean that you've done the work.
The work.
Exactly.
The work.
We talk about the work, and I know a lot of people probably gonna look at us in a certain way, thinking like, man, they talking about everything. We talking about psychology, we
Mm.
talk about neurology,
Mhm.
we talk about spirituality,
Mhm.
we talk about, and I've gone down all of these, and guess what? They're all the same.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Just
They
different
are.
levels of it.
And
Mhm.
it's spoken in different ways.
And
Yeah.
I try to keep a broad overview of it all
Yeah.
because it's the way that I'm able to be able to speak to the masses in a way that makes sense.
Right.
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 Because I can go into the little micro. You're the micro person.
Right.
You can really break because you're an organized person. Like
Mhm.
she's the science brain.
Yeah.
You know, that really puts those pieces together. And for
Mhm.
me, I'm like, yo, I gotta be able to say this in my own way to make sense to
Mhm.
everybody else. But all those layers exist, and you gotta go through all those layers
Yeah.
because it's
Mhm.
programming on every one of them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Every single one.
Yeah.
It's like a video game. You
Yeah.
know, you have your reincarnation lives in the video game.
Mhm.
And you get to pass
Yep.
the first level, and if you can't, you die. You come back again, incarnated, and you keep
Mhm.
trying. And there's levels to the game, and you keep trying to get to this top level. It's an ascension process, like we always say. And every time you're supposed to become smarter, better, and you realize your skills become better, your talent becomes better, your ability to perceive what's going to happen in future events in the video game
Mhm.
becomes
Mhm.
better.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You start to find the Easter eggs and the
Yeah.
loopholes and everything else. It's the same way as we live here in this regular third dimension. Those same exact aspects of, precognition, discernment,
Yeah.
all these things we're in the game. We're actually in this matrix game, and we have to
Mhm.
utilize those extra sensory skills and talents.
And people may think that's crazy, but look at this. It's everywhere. Look
Mhm.
at this. If I downloaded the new version of iOS
Mhm.
and it was worse than a version you just released,
Yeah.
Mhm.
the latest version, what would happen? It would be pandemonium. We would hate it.
Complaints and everything else.
Mhm.
So what happens when in your family you're a worse generation than the generation before you? A
Right.
mentor told me one time, he said, if my son and daughter are no greater than I am,
Mhm.
I have failed as a
Failed.
father.
Mm.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And this is where we are. This whole generational curses,
Mhm.
generational programming, it's
Right.
all the same stuff. If you're not better than your people
Mhm.
before you,
Yeah.
you failed.
Right.
Failed.
And I read a meme. Well, it wasn't even a meme. Somebody on the comment, they said we aren't our ancestors because they were saying that they were saying it in a way of like, oh, we not my ancestors. Like I whoop your ass. I'm
Right.
black. I won't. What are you talking about? Our ancestors had mad resilience.
Yes.
You right. We are not our ancestors. We are
Mhm.
weak.
Yeah.
Mm.
Very
Mm.
weak compared to
We've
them.
become weak. Now, one thing our ancestors, they had physical strength and we held our emotions.
Mhm.
That's what made us weak.
Yeah.
Mm.
What we have to do though is bridge the gap to have that resiliency,
Right.
taking pain,
Mhm.
but acknowledging pain,
Right.
Yeah.
integrating pain,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that makes you the greater. And that's where we are in our realm of, with the therapies and things of that nature. That's all that's doing is going back, integrating that pain from our ancestors,
Right.
Mm.
and becoming new.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that's what happened. Again, you go all the way down to the end of the movie. What had happened with Neo? He had to die.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You
Some
gotta
things,
die.
then you gotta die.
Mhm.
Hmm. That's
know.
a representation of the old you,
Yeah.
being cast away, and now making room for the new you.
Right.
Hmm.
And so, just like when people come to Inception, part of them actually dies, and what happens is it starts to erase all that trauma. That's like the old consciousness of the old